Who are with us today in council chambers.
Okay, I'll take it away from there.
Isn't there a translator?
Yes,
Or am I-
translating
Oh, there she
simultaneously.
is.
Simultaneously, yes.
It is happening?
Yes, happening.
Oh,
Okay, good. Is that you who does it?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
doing
great.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm simultaneously interpreting.
Oh, you're doing it
into this
simultaneously?
microphone so they can
Okay,
hear
good.
me.
Things have improved since I was here last. Okay, thank you. And I want to welcome you, Madam Translator, to the table. And I'll now pass this to Commissioner Ryan.
thank you, Mayor. I do have a question. So do I have to, I've failed miserably at this before when I've had a translator because I go on too long. So do I still pause with this advancement in technology? Okay, I could, based on their reactions, it's in real time. Got it. Okay, I'll still pause now and then. All right, got it. Well, good afternoon. I want to welcome members from the Japan Intercultural Academy of Municipalities to the city of Portland. I'm so proud that Portland supports diplomacy with other countries because these relationships provide mutual benefits. Got it. Not only does it promote solidarity between different communities, but it also is an opportunity to exchange ideas that create solutions for our residents. And strong relations with other countries are important, more important than ever. Our world is becoming increasingly interconnected through the emerging technologies, migration, immigration, environmental considerations such as cleaner energy, modified food sources, and our changing climate.
資源ですね、こういった側面に関しましても他の国との関係というのは非常に重要になってきておりまして、またテクノロジーなどで世界がつながってきています。
For multiple years, Portland has welcomed and exchanged ideas with JIAM.
また数年間こちらで享受させていただいている JIAM 様との関係を歓迎したいと思います。
And this year, JIAM is particularly interested in learning more from the Office of Community and Civic Life's Neighborhood Program and Immigration and Refugee Program. After this, they will meet with Civic Life staff to learn about their civic engagement work.
そしてそこのですね、移民難民のサービス等について特に JIAM 様が興味を持っているというふうに理解しておりまして、この後シビック局とミーティングが入っております。
One of our city's core values is collaboration, and we remain committed to the idea that we are better together. Let's continue committing to collaboration with different communities and showcasing cultural humility.
私ポートランドのその中核的なそのミッションとしましてはコラボレーション提携というものがあります。これに向けてですね、さらに努力していきたいと思っております。
Please join me in welcoming the members of JIAM, and I welcome Professor Kawakatsu to say a few words on behalf of the delegation. Welcome back to Portland. I just learned that you were at Portland State just recently. Welcome.
先生にですね、一言いただきたいと思います。
Visiting professor.
はい、
Nice.
Yes. この度は市議会という貴重な場にお招きくださりまして、また私どもの訪問をこのように歓迎してくださいましたことを心より感謝申し上げます。
Well, thank you so much for welcoming us to this chamber, a very special place.
私ども住民主体で持続可能なまちづくりに取り組んでこられたこのポートランドに大変関心を持ちまして、その教訓を学びたくて今日参りました。
Well, we're here to learn from Portland, where community members led the effort to build a sustainable city.
実は私この町で、コミュニティの一員として過ごしたことがあります。
Well, in fact, I once was a community member here in Portland.
私は今でもですね、そのことをとても誇りに思っておりまして、そのですね、ポートランドの町づくりに関わってこられたすべての人たちをとても尊敬しております。
And I'm still proud that I used to be a member here. And I admire all the people who are involved in community development in Portland.
で限られた滞在時間なんですけれども、ポートランドの人たちとたくさん交流してですね、この街で大切にされている価値観、これをですね、体感できることをとても楽しみにしております。
Although our visit is very short here, we look forward to interacting with as many people as possible in Portland and experiencing the values that the Portlanders cherish.
Thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you, arigato. Thank you. Colleagues, did anybody else want to say anything? Very good. Do you have time for a photo?
写真を撮るお時間ありますか？
Of course.
Good. Commissioner Ike organizes.
I don't know if we have, we have a camera, that's so good.
どこで？
Yeah, we're together. Professor, good professor.
Yes.
How do you want to do this? I'm really tall, so.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Carmen and I are together.
Yeah, we're problematic. I mean, this, you're gonna have to shrink here.
Vegas, you're too tall.
We need some guidance here.
Right there, perfect. That's good. This way, just a little bit.
Who?
Yes, Max.
Me?
Yeah, it's just a little bit. I wanted to get you in the, like, right back here. Keep going. Yes, right
Like
there.
a haiku. Make sure this face behind you can be seen. It's the Good. start of a haiku.
There you go. I just want to make sure
I
everyone's
think
seen.
so. I think we're onto something.
Okay, here we go, everyone. Look. 3, 2, 1. And we got it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
You can share with
Oh, terrific.
family members.
Yes, we'll share it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is Japanese culture.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Enjoy.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your stay.
ありがとうございました。残りの時間楽しんでください。
ありがとうございます。
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone in the chamber, for welcoming our delegation from Japan.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is the Wednesday, August 30th, 2023 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. Keelan, good afternoon. Please call the roll.
Good afternoon. Gonzalez.
Here.
Maps.
Here.
Rubio.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here. We'll now hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Portland City Council. To testify before council in person or virtually, you must sign up in advance on the council agenda at www.portland.gov/council/agenda. Information on engaging with city council can be found on the council clerk's webpage. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during city council meetings. Presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. A timer will indicate when your time is done. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If you cause a disruption, a warning will be given. Further disruption will result in ejection from the meeting. Anyone who fails to leave once ejected is subject to arrest for trespass. Additionally, the council may take a short recess and reconvene virtually. Your testimony today should address the matter being considered. When testifying, state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Disclosed if you're a lobbyist. If you're representing an organization, please identify it. For testifiers joining virtually, please unmute yourself once the council clerk calls your name. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two items this afternoon, 731 and 732, to be read together. Both are non-emergency ordinances.
Item 731, amend Title 33, Planning and Zoning, and the zoning map to reduce the impacts of future flooding on the city and prevent the degradation of floodplain habitat for endangered and threatened fish species. Item 732, amend flood hazard areas code to comply with Federal Emergency Management Agency National Flood Insurance Program requirements and modify compensatory excavation and removal requirements.
Colleagues, today we're holding one hearing on two related agenda items. They both update regulations that apply to development in the city's floodplain. These two related ordinances are being brought to us by the Bureaus of Planning and Sustainability and the Development Services. Just as a reminder, these are non-emergency ordinances, meaning we will not be voting today. We will be taking public testimony. I'll now pass it to Commissioner Rubio to kick off today's presentation. Good afternoon, Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. The proposals in front of us today are the result of many years of conversations between multiple bureaus and stakeholders about an incredibly complex topic. And I want to be clear, consensus was hard. The decision is complicated and the expertise lies within bureau leadership and their staff. So what you have before you today is staff's final recommendation to this elected body. And as you will hear in a few moments, city staff from several bureaus have been working on a long-term program to manage the city's floodplains and update regulations for new development in the floodplain and in Central City and other areas. These changes are important to bring Portland's regulations into compliance with evolving federal regulations related to fish habitat, to advance the city's climate resiliency goals, and to ensure that properties in the floodplain remain eligible for federal flood insurance. The staff recommendation before us and the public today aims to balance the needs to address these issues, while also recognizing the importance of building housing and future economic development in the existing areas that allow for development. I want to thank the Bureau directors and staff that have been digging into these issues and who have been working together to bring this forward to us today. It has truly been a team effort, and I'm grateful that they have come up with a recommendation that I support. In a moment, staff will walk us through two ordinances. One addresses development regulations in the city's zoning code, and the other addresses development regulations in the city's building code. But before that, I'd like to introduce a few amendments to the legislation. All of these amendments were shared with your offices last week and were available to the public on Friday. They were also published on the BPS project website for the past 2 weeks. We won't vote on these amendments today, but need to introduce them so that we can hear public testimony on them today as well. I'd like to welcome the staff from Bureau of Planning and Sustainability to share a quick summary of the amendments, and the team will cover them again later on as a part of their presentation. I will turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Patricia Diefender for Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, Chief Planner. We're just teeing up the presentation
Okay.
here really quickly. There's a couple of slides we'd like to show that summarize the amendments.
Okay.
And while you're getting that teed up, could I just remind people, we have a lot of people who are interested in testifying today. We're going to hear from all of you today, but please be prepared to keep your remarks succinctly at 2 minutes each. Thank you.
So, thank you, Mayor. So once the slide is up, I will move to amend.
Closed out for some reason. I got logged out, so just a minute, please.
Never fails.
Just my luck.
There we go.
Got it? Okay. Okay, with that, I move to amend item 731, the Title 33 ordinance package, as shown in the August 16 memo to council.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Rubio and a second for Commissioner Ryan to accept the amendment. Oh, I'm Sorry, my microphone was off. Thank you. If that happens again, let me know. We have a motion from Commissioner Rubio and a second from Commissioner Ryan to accept the amendment memo, so it's on the table.
Would you like us to describe them briefly?
Yes, please.
Summarize them?
Yeah.
Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Jeff Cottle. I'm an environmental planner, and I'm managing the floodplain resilience plan from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I just thought we'd go through each of these. So we've separated, as you can see from the memo, we've separated the amendments into 3 main substantive amendments, some more significant amendments, and then we have some other technical clarifications. And we'll just go through each of these, and we can answer questions if they come up. The first amendment, amendment number 1, is simply aimed at extending the expiration period for land use approvals for those projects that are larger, multiple buildings and phased projects. Right now, the land use approval expires in 3 years. We're proposing to extend that to 7 years, recognizing that these larger multiple development, multiple phase buildings often can be challenging to be done in 3 years. The second amendment is to allow for minor changes to an approved river review. And so currently, any changes to an approved river review require an applicant to go through a type 2 review and be subject to the regulations in effect at that time. This allows for some minor changes to an approved river review as long within established parameters, and any additional impacts will be mitigated through a more simple type 1X process, and then also it will maintain the project to be vested in the code that was in effect at the original river review approval, the land use review approval. Finally, number 3 is we've been working with our partners at the Bureau of Environmental Services. They have a number of different pump station and other utility improvements that they need, renovations and upgrades that they need to be doing over the next number of years. So after working with them, this amendment maintains an exemption as long as those utilities in general do not expand. They will still be exempted from city approval, so they don't have to come to the city for approval. If they're going to expand, they would need to come to city approval. And then along the Willamette, there are a few pump stations, existing pump stations, that are actually within the river setback as we have it right now. And so this amendment allows for some expansion of those pump stations to meet future demand, as long as those developments don't go any closer to the river. So those are the 3 substantive. And then I will quickly go to the other technical amendments, which really are just sort of minor updates. There's some clarification to what is required for for modifying a river overlay boundary along the Willamette River. Just a few things that we neglected to include in these approval criteria as a part of the River Plan South Reach. And then the other 3 items are really just updating, 5, 6, and 7 are really just updating our plan, the bulk of the kind of beginning of the plan, to just represent current information related to mitigation banks and our action plan. And then the 7th is really adding those zoning maps to where someone can see the existing and proposed changes for any zoning, for the environmental zoning. I'm happy to answer any questions on
Great.
those.
So just for the record, so we will take, these are now on the table. We'll take testimony on these amendments as they're proposed today, and then we'll vote on them when they come back to council for consideration on September 13th. Colleagues, any questions?
We already moved and seconded all of them?
They've been moved and seconded.
That's what we did at the very
Yeah, they
beginning.
came as a collective
Big package,
memo.
got it.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Okay, so now we'll just go ahead and go into the presentation. Okay, thank you. Once again, for the record, Patricia Diefendorfer. Just going to make a few opening remarks, and then the staff will present the specifics of the proposal. So the proposed project before you today, as was mentioned, includes both zoning code amendments and building code updates that apply to development in the floodplain and will reduce flood risk and improve habitat for endangered and threatened species, advancing a number of city resiliency goals. The city does a lot currently to regulate development in and manage the floodplain, and these proposed regulations are an evolution in the city's approach to managing the floodplains. The proposed regulations also respond to current as well as evolving federal regulations. The proposed regulatory changes generally consist of two types of changes. One is more minor technical and procedural changes, some of which are required by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, that will ensure that Portland residents and business owners continue to have access to federally backed flood insurance and disaster assistance funding. They also streamline and simplify regulations by bringing regulations and procedures across geographies into consistency so that they are easier to implement and to comply with. And then more substantial changes that will bring the city's floodplain regulations into compliance with future federal requirements that respond to a 2016 biological opinion known as the FEMA BIOP, which concluded that the National Flood Insurance Program reduces floodplain habitat and harms a number of fish species. In this project, the more substantive changes predominantly affect the central reach of the Willamette River in the central city, but other amendments will also affect floodplains elsewhere in the city. As it relates to the central city zoning code changes, similar regulations were adopted for the south reach of the Willamette River in 2020 in the South Reach Plan. Future phases of this work will similarly develop context-sensitive regulations for other areas of the city, including industrial areas or industrial lands within the city's floodplain. So FEMA has not yet finalized updated regulations, but has provided interim guidance on a regulatory approach that would comply with the BIOP. The proposed changes are responsive to this interim guidance. Final rules are anticipated in March of 2025, with a compliance deadline expected in early 2027. As noted, the proposal before the City Council today is one phase in a larger multi-year work plan that was developed by a number of partner bureaus in response to the biological opinion, and that aim to bring all the city's floodplains into compliance by the anticipated 2027 deadline. In general, the regulations aim to increase trees and vegetation in the floodplain, limit the removal of trees and vegetation without city approval, require new development in the central reach of the Willamette to make habitat improvements to the banks of the river that have a beneficial effect on river function and fish habitat, and in a number of areas increase the amount of excavation or soil removal required to compensate for any placement of soil or structure adjacent to the river. This improves flood storage capacity and avoids the displacement of floodwaters to adjacent properties. As proposed, the more minor changes would go into effect in the near term in March 2024, and the more substantial changes would go into effect in October 2025, after FEMA is expected to release its final rules. This proposed project is citywide and looks at many of the city's floodplain areas, but does not address all the areas. Also, not all of the proposed regulations apply everywhere. There are differences across various geographies, which will be described in further detail in the presentation. Finally, the proposed regulatory changes aim to balance environmental goals and the city's goals for housing and economic development and economic revitalization in the central city. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Jeff Caudill and Jason Butler-Brown, who will complete the presentation.
This. So we're just going to provide a little bit of background to sort of give a little bit of context for this work, and then from there we'll talk about our specific proposals, a little bit more detail compared to what Patricia just shared. So a key piece of this, so as Patricia mentioned, in 2016, the National Marine Fisheries Service released a biological opinion on the National Flood Insurance Program, FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program, and that determined that it impacts salmon and steelhead, threatened and endangered salmon and steelhead species. Since then, the city's been working in a multi-bureau kind of core team on this effort, and through that collaboration in 2019, we had developed a 5-year work plan that was signed by the bureau directors of 8 bureaus, all involved in sort of planning and development within the city. You can see the list there. that 2019 work plan responded specifically to the directives in the biological opinion and really covered three main areas: regulatory updates, floodplain restoration as a general sort of activity within the city, and then mitigation banks as an alternative for on-site mitigation and what the city can do, evaluation what the city can do to support those mitigation banks. As you see there in the slide, the overarching goals of this whole work plan is to, one, allow us to continue to have access to the National Flood Insurance Program, because we will be required to comply with these new requirements. And that also results in the ability to get disaster relief funds in case of a flood. To reduce future flood risk, of course, and then also, like we've said, to improve habitat for those threatened and endangered species. So this work today is really a key step in the continued implementation of our work plan. And as you'll see, we have future projects that we will be working on too. So just a little bit about our flood hazard areas. This map shows the 6 waterways that are subject to the National Flood Insurance Program requirements, the biological opinion. So this shows the combination of what is the FEMA 100-year floodplain, which most people are most familiar with, and is directly the purview of FEMA. And then it also shows it's combined with the 1996 flood inundation area, which is a metro or regional government. They have a map that estimated and really looked at the boundaries of the February 1996 flood, the most recent significant flood we've had in the city, and we regulate that, both of these different flood areas. So there's, as we said, there's zoning and building regulations. So Title 33 is the zoning code, Title 24 is the building regulations, and so it's a combination of proposals in both of these, in both these codes. And the proposals for the different areas vary by the portion where we are in the city, the different parts of the city and the different rivers, and we'll go through rivers and waterways, and we'll go through that. As Patricia mentioned, as you'll see, this project does not propose anything for the Columbia Slough and the industrial lands in the Columbia Corridor, and the Willamette River North Reach, which will be part of future work. I'll be revisiting this map to sort of highlight the different proposals in the different areas. So this graphic shows generally our overall work plan and the components of our work plan in relation to FEMA's timeline. So as you can see there, we started 2016 with the biological opinion. Right now, FEMA is in the middle of their National Environmental Policy Act's review. They've completed scoping. They are required to have that what is called NEPA review completed by early 2025, as we've talked about, March of 2025. And then the expectation is that jurisdictions will have 18 to 24 months to come into compliance. And so given our different regulatory structures, we're taking this stepwise approach, as you can see in the graphic at the bottom. All of the orange arrows are zoning code updates, so regulations of different portions of the city. As we said, December of 2020, we adopted the River Plan South Reach. We're now at the Floodplain Resilience Plan, and we'll go through the details of that. In the future, we've already started working on the Columbia Corridor as a part of the economic opportunities analysis to make sure that both the concerns related to the economic opportunities and economic development portion are also balanced and take into consideration any additional environmental regulations. And then same with the River Plan North Reach. And then finally, there is one other area, which is Johnson Creek, and we have separated that out because they have different types of flooding, different regulations, and really do warrant their own kind of approach in terms of a project. Throughout this whole process, as we'll say, we have building code proposals that we will talk about today, and then those subsequent phases, both in the corridor and River Plan in the North Reach and in Johnson Creek, will also have components that will be addressed through the building code updates. And as we said, throughout this whole period, we're really looking at both restoration and mitigation banking as options and ways in which to contribute to compliance for the city. So just very quickly, a little bit about the Floodplain Resilience Plan. We're happy to answer any questions to get in more detail. But so in general, the zoning code updates look at three main things. The first thing is raising the mitigation requirements, increasing mitigation requirements for development that is nearest the river in the central reach, and we'll talk about that specifically. That's related to what we are terming the riparian buffer area. Was in the biological opinion was referred to as riparian buffer zone, and I can tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. Beyond that, that's the most significant change. Beyond that, the other changes are really looking at raising the minimum tree and vegetation management requirements, so replacement of trees and ensuring that over time, that throughout the city, and primarily in this case, we're talking about through the environmental zones, which apply outside to everywhere else except the Willamette River, that we are raising those minimum tree management requirements, and we can talk about that. And then in some cases, there's a little bit of expansion of the environmental overlay zone, and that's in the Fano Creek and Tryon Creek area, mostly in the Fano and Tryon, and that's just to encompass undeveloped floodplains, so where we still have vegetated floodplain to make sure that those protections are applied there. And all of these are drawing directly from the biological opinion. So just a little bit about, we wanted to highlight the Willamette River specifically because of the proposals here. So the central reach, as we talked about, the proposed amendments add new requirements for mitigation into that area, that riparian buffer area, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. In the south waterfront, we are the only thing we're really doing there, because there's already a 100-foot setback, and we have a good amount of protection and separation from development from the river there. We're really just doing that same thing. We're raising the tree and vegetation management and replacement requirements there. Another piece, a key update in South Waterfront, is to change the land use approval in South Waterfront for a greenway overlay zone, greenway review, to type 2, which is more consistent with what we do elsewhere in the city for environmental reviews. Right now, the requirement is a type 3 review, which can be onerous if you're just doing the a greenway review. So it'll bring it back consistent with the requirements elsewhere in the city. In the south reach, we have been working, the Bureau of Environmental Services has been working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on a new model for the lower Willamette River for a 1996-like flood for us to understand, given current development patterns and topography and river characteristics, where we would expect flooding as a result of 1996 flood, because we expect that 1996 flood will be more likely. And so we are just incorporating the results of that model into our requirements in the South Reach, where before we had used the Metro 1996 map, and we think that the model is a more accurate estimate of where flooding will happen. In addition, in the South Reach, we're removing, outside of the riparian buffer area and areas near the water, we're removing the river environmental overlay zone from the developed floodplain, because in further conversations with Bureau of Development Services, they determined that probably isn't an effective way to get additional habitat, et cetera, on those areas. And so, that'll be more consistent with what we do elsewhere in the city. In the South Reach, in the River Plan South Reach, we had applied it to the entire floodplain. So just a little bit about the riparian buffer area, and as I said, this was specifically identified as key habitat for threatened and endangered species in the biological opinion. So it's 170 feet from ordinary high water, so not the top of bank. So often the ordinary high water mark is closer to the river, but still it can extend, that 170 feet can extend beyond the river setback, or that 50-foot setback that we have in the central city. And just to note that it only goes out to the floodplain. It does not extend. So if the floodplain only extends 60 feet, it stops at the 60-foot mark for the riparian buffer area requirements. So it is not a no-build zone. It's not like the setback. It is just an area that would be required to have a little bit more mitigation beyond what we currently require. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So that would basically be, additional vegetation or trees, maybe removal in a sort of more limited impacts on the riparian buffer area might be removal of hardscape or that sort of thing and planting. Otherwise, it could be something more significant, which I'll give some examples here. But it's important to note that this could be addressed either on-site or off-site, and we'll talk a little bit about those options later in the PowerPoint. And as I said, the requirements will vary depending on the extent and the type of impact on the riparian buffer area. So a couple of examples that we, just to sort of illustrate, it's really, I think when you think about what the riparian buffer area is trying to do, it's just trying to make it to where that riverbank is more, has a more natural kind of condition. So things like removing of riprap or existing structures, which there are a good amount of those in the central city. So really creating habitat for fish species adjacent to the river. And also, in a case of a flood, there is habitat there, and that fish can get back to the river when it happens. So this is really what we call kind of laying back the bank. This is kind of an example both from River Place here and also South Waterfront, which of course South Waterfront does have that larger setback, so it's a little bit easier to accommodate these things. But that's really just give you the flavor of what the proposals are, or what the strategies might be. And I just want to note also for the riparian buffer area, it would have no effect on existing development. It's only if you are doing development in that area, either a full redevelopment. We've been really looking at where those areas where are, in the buildable lands inventory that might redevelop. But really, it's only for new development, and nothing would change for people, for projects or for buildings that are already in the riparian buffer area. So quickly, the last few things in terms of our proposals. So as I said, here, Fano and Tryon Creek, small increases in the environmental overlay zone, so environmental conservation. Again, that doesn't limit development, it just requires mitigation and of impacts. And then for the rest of the city, for all of these, for the Columbia River and Johnson Creek, it's really about in existing environmental overlay zones, raising that tree replacement and vegetation management standard, just raising the bottom sort of threshold. Just quickly, a little bit about our public engagement process, and we have been to the Planning and Sustainability Commission, as all projects do. The original draft that was available for public review for 3 months goes back to November of 2021. In the fall of 2022, we were at the Planning and Sustainability Commission. Just a little bit about the themes that we heard was probably similar to it is similar to what we're hearing, what you'll hear today, I'm sure. Importance of climate change. I think one big one, expediting the work to address industrial areas and completing the EOA faster. A key one was to bring Title 24 changes and the zoning code changes to council together. And that's why we're here today. And that's why we've been working the last 6 months or so to get ready for this. And then the Planning and Sustainability Commission only really had very targeted, limited, they were in support of the project, but had really targeted amendments, really focused on kind of mapping, technical mapping and zoning code proposals. So pretty limited changes there. So we've already talked about these amendments, just a reminder. This is two groups, the substantive and the technical, and we can answer any questions related to that if you have them. And then finally, before I hand it over to Jason, as Patricia mentioned, we have these different code changes broken out into two packages, one that would go into effect in March of 2024. Most of the items would go into effect in March of 2024, but the proposals in the central city would have that 2-year delay to go into implementation at 2025. So each of these are, really focused on that minimum tree replacement across the city, as we talked about, incorporation of the 1996 model into the South Reach. And then there's some other miscellaneous, just sort of minor code, and again, kind of technical updates that we have worked with primarily the Bureau of Development Services on that would go into effect in March. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jason.
Thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon. I'm Jason Butler-Brown. I'm an engineering supervisor with the Bureau of Development Services, and I use he, him pronouns. The following slides speak to the proposed amendments to the city's building code regulations for development within flood hazard areas. Sure, thank you. The amendments are presented as two exhibits, Exhibit A and Exhibit B. Exhibit A adopts regulatory changes that are required to maintain compliance with FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program, or NFIP, and adopts a new map of the February 1996 flood inundation area developed by the city that Jeff described. Exhibit B amendments are in response to the FEMA BIOP and are primarily address flood storage compensation requirements. A recent review by FEMA of the city's floodplain development regulations identified several changes that are required in order for the city to remain in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. The Exhibit A amendments align the city's code with the State of Oregon National Flood Insurance Program Model Ordinance. These amendments include additional definitions, additional clarity on permit submittal and inspection requirements. They required a development permit for structures that are in the floodplain that are currently exempt from building permit under our current code. And in some cases, a covenant will be required limiting the use of new or improved buildings that create enclosed spaces below the flood elevation. In addition, the Exhibit A amendments adopt a new City of Portland composite 1996 flood inundation area map. The composite map is a combination of the February 1996 flood inundation area shown on the Metro Title III map and the results of the recently completed model of the Willamette River 1996 flood inundation area that Jeff described. The Metro Title III map is a boundary map of the flood inundation area developed from aerial imagery following the February 1996 floods. The modeled 1996 flood inundation area is the results of a collaborative effort between the Bureau of Environmental Services and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The model is based on recent river bathymetry, upland topography and development patterns, and uses a 1996-like flood flow in order to model the extents and elevation of that flood. And we're applying that modeled result within the central and south reach of the Willamette River. The the composite map, maintains the current Metro Title III exemption of South Waterfront. This exemption has been in place since the adoption of the Metro Title III maps in 2000. The model does not apply to the industrial lands, which we will discuss shortly. The Exhibit B amendments are focused on updating flood storage compensation requirements within certain areas of the FEMA 100-year floodplain in response to the FEMA biological opinion. These changes are not required to maintain compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program minimum requirements. However, like Jeff indicated, we expect that they will be required once FEMA's implementation plan is formally released. As described in the timeline slide, the expectation is that the implementation plan will be released around March of 2025, and that jurisdictions will be given about 18 to 24 months to update their floodplain regulations and be in compliance sometime in 2027. The city's current code requires balanced cut and fill within the majority of the city's flood hazard areas. When fill is placed below the flood elevation, an equal volume of soil removal or compensating excavation is required in order to reduce impacts of development on the floodplain, such as increasing elevations of floodwater up or downstream of the development. This cartoon illustrates the placement of fill and the corresponding removal of soil to maintain that balance. Balanced cut and fill is not a requirement of the National Flood Insurance Program. It is considered a higher regulatory standard, and in part, by regulating to this higher standard, Portlanders are eligible for a 25% discount on their flood insurance premiums. The Exhibit B amendments require flood storage compensation for new fill and structure, including additions to existing structures within certain areas of the FEMA 100-year floodplain. Flood storage compensation will include the removal of soil, rock, or permanent structure that displaces floodwater. The volume of flood storage compensation is based on the location of the development relative to the river. The high hazard area, which is shown in this area, depicts an area with the highest or most sensitive area and requires a compensation ratio of 2:1. For every cubic yard of flood storage displaced, 2 cubic yards of storage would be required to be created. Within 50 feet of the top of bank, as defined in the zoning code, the ratio would be 1.5 to 1. And within the remainder of the FEMA 100-year floodplain, the ratio would be 1 to 1 for both fill and structure. The amendments will allow for the use of flood storage mitigation banks within the same flood area rather than creating flood storage on site. And they will allow certain land use approvals to vest permits in the flood storage requirements in effect at the time a complete land use application is received. In addition, the Exhibit B amendments maintain the current balanced cut and fill requirements within the February 1996 flood inundation area. So that will apply to the placement of fill at a ratio of 1 to 1. In addition, the increased storage requirements do not apply to the industrial zone land, which includes the heavy industrial, general industrial 2, and general employment 2 zones. Again, the Exhibit A FEMA regulatory requirements or updates apply to all flood hazard areas within the city unless specifically identified otherwise. The Exhibit B BIOP-related amendments will apply to the Columbia River flood zones, Willamette River Central and South Reach flood zones, and the Fano Creek flood zones, as depicted on this map. So in summary, the Exhibit A amendments are required to maintain compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program and adopts the composite February 1996 flood inundation area map. These amendments would take effect on March 1st of 2024. The Exhibit B amendments are changes to flood storage compensation requirements in response to the FEMA biological opinion and would go into effect on October 1st of 2025. This slide provides a summary of public outreach that Bureau of Development Services and Bureau of Planning and Sustainability took on this summer. The purpose of the outreach was to raise awareness and seek feedback on the proposed amendments. Public presentations were given that summarized both the building code changes and provided an overview of the Title 33 amendments. In addition, a copy or a draft copy of the proposed amendments were published for public review and comment, which was open from July 10th through August 1st. The feedback we received was primarily from environmental stakeholders and included requests to remove the South Waterfront exemption, to not allow land use cases to vest projects in current cut and fill requirements, and to not delay implementation, and to adopt the rules for the industrial lands sooner or now. We also received comments in support of the proposed amendments to maintain the South Waterfront exemption, allow for vesting, and in support of the implementation timelines. With that, I will hand it back over to Jeff to talk about development considerations and costs.
Thanks, Jason. So, yeah, we have also, of course, been looking to see what we think the implications of these proposals would be on development, especially within the Central City. And so first we wanted to just start with a little bit about mitigation banks as the option for offsite mitigation and the importance of that as a potential way in which future projects could meet the requirements that we're talking about. So we do know there are 2 existing mitigation banks, both primarily serving the Superfund site, the Portland Harbor Superfund site, but through some discussions and negotiations with the National Marine Fisheries Service, they have the ability to sell flood storage capacity credits to meet the requirements that Jason was just discussing. And so there is a mitigation bank that it used to be the Linton Plywood site by Rich Storcap that has roughly around 16, as we understand it, around 16,000 cubic yards of flood storage that would be available. PG Harborton, which isn't too far from that Restore Cap mitigation bank, has what we understand to be around 57,000 cubic yards of flood storage. The only difference between these two is that PG Harborton has expressed an interest in selling those in bulk potentially rather than in smaller amounts. And then, as many of you know, the city has been doing, city staff have been looking into the potential for a future mitigation bank at East Bank Crescent, which is just to the south on the east side of the Hawthorne Bridge. And based on current conceptions of that mitigation bank, we expect it to be about 10,000 cubic yards of flood storage. But one thing to note about the difference between the two existing mitigation banks and that East Bank Crescent mitigation bank is that is currently being envisioned as having both habitat and flood storage credits kind of stacked together as a bundle. And so this is beneficial for a project because they can meet all of their local and state and federal with one purchase of a credit, as compared to these other two are really just specifically to flood storage. On the right side of this table, we've just done some estimates of what we think the demand is in the central city on sort of private development sites that are on the buildable lands inventory, and those projects are those that we expect to occur in the next 20 years. And so we estimate around 27,000 cubic yards. So clearly with the combination of the two, we have more capacity in mitigation banks, but really the one that we know for sure is Restore Cap, so there is a difference there. There's also on the habitat side, well, I guess the public projects will potentially also have demand for a future mitigation bank or other mitigation, the East Bank Crescent or other mitigation banks. And then an analysis by the Bureau of Environmental Services back in 2019 looked at a lot of the permits in the Greenway overlay zone, so along the Willamette River, and determined that roughly about half of those projects would have benefited from offsite mitigation as an option. So again, to dig a little bit deeper into what we're just sort of looking at a really hypothetical level, what we think the implications are in terms of cost implications for these the proposals here. We looked at what we consider to be sort of a typical central city project, so around 2.5 acres of at least a waterfront, typical waterfront central city project. About 2.5 acres zoned EX really allows for full development of the site. And the baseline project that we looked at in terms of costs that not in the floodplain was around $205 million for such a project. So in the first hypothetical, we really were looking at a redevelopment site, which is most relevant in the central city because pretty much all of the sites along the river, most of the sites are already developed. So in this scenario, really looking at on-site, you would meet the habitat requirements, the zoning code requirements, and meet the cut fill requirements, compensatory excavation requirements offsite through the purchase of those credits. One thing to note is that those credits would need to address the net change in structure. So given there's sort of the positive that is that they have the building already, and so you get kind of credit for that. And so it would be about the increase on the development that would need to be offset for the compensatory excavation. So the combination of those two, as you can see, clearly already development along the Willamette River has a greenway trail requirement and landscaping along the water, so we included that. Existing floodproofing estimate on a project like this is about $10 million in addition to the base $205 million. And then these new requirements, combination of the on-site habitat, which would be more the mitigation strategies that I presented, those pictures where you would do removal of structures or riprap, that sort of thing. The combination of the two, the mitigation, habitat mitigation on-site and off-site flood storage is about $1.4 million, or basically I think it's about 0.6% of the total construction cost as we understand it. The other hypothetical we've been looking at is really looking at the benefits of having that East Bank Crescent-like mitigation bank where you'd be able to do a one-stop shop for all of your mitigation requirements. And that what this hypothetical looks at is all of your natural resource impacts. Again, a lot of the sites in the central city don't have a lot of natural resources outside of the riverbank itself and the setback. But nonetheless, we've been looking at kind of what the total cost, and again, there's still clearly the Greenway Trail and those types of things, but looking at an estimate of those off-site completely through a mitigation bank like East Bank Crescent. It's roughly $2.3 million, so a little bit more than the other option, but again, you would be able to address the entirety of your impact. And that's
Could I-
roughly
could I
about
just ask
1%.
a question while we're on this page? So the existing flood-proofing requirements of 10 million, has that source been identified?
That has been, we have worked with our economic planners at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and they've been working with contacts that they have to get an estimate. I mean, it's rough. Clearly, all of these are just sort of trying to get a sense of, but that's,
And I understand that, but has a source been identified? Once you settle on the existing requirements and you add to it the new requirements, has a source been identified?
I mean, we have just been working with our economic planners to try to get these rough estimates, yeah.
And so, assuming we agree to this, this would be a requirement of the council, correct? We would be committing to this.
Patricia Diefendorfer for the record. Just to clarify, the floodproofing, for example, is an existing regulation. It already exists. So we were just trying to contextualize these additional regulations and their cost. So you can see there is cost to doing development in the floodplain currently, and these regulations represent an incremental increase in that cost.
And do you have a sense of who bears that cost and what the source of the financing would be for those costs, either the existing regulations or the proposed?
It's part of the financing of a development project, so all of these costs would be embedded in the pro formas of projects, and
So it would be borne by those who are seeking development?
yes,
within the
it would be
floodplain?
borne, all of this would be borne by
Okay.
those seeking development, yes,
Okay.
pardon me.
Very good, thank you, that's helpful.
And just for the note, so the floodproofing requirements, Jason could answer more about that because that's part of the Title 24 requirements, and basically anywhere below the flood elevation needs to be floodproofed, and that's
Thank
what
you.
that's trying to
That's
capture.
helpful context, I appreciate that.
So the last few slides, and then we'll open it up for questions and hear from folks with testimony. So just, we have received testimony through the MAP app. We have a MAP app for the floodplain resilience plan, which I think basically most people have been using to provide comment on both of these projects, these proposals, but there is one also for the Chapter 20, Title 24 requirements. We have the full record. We have the record available for people to review. Of course, we'll be adding it as we go through the city council process, et cetera. And so there's a link there. And then we also have materials on our floodplain resilience plan website that will also go into the record. And then, so we just wanted to quickly lay out the next steps, as we are working through here with this hearing and future amendments and discussions and deliberations for the potential adoption, of course. Just highlighting again the first package of code requirements. The proposal would be that those would go into effect in March 2024. Between now and 2027, after this was adopted, we would continue to work on the implementation of our work plan, and those again would address industrial lands, North Reach, Johnson Creek, and then again, the March of 2025 is when we would expect to have the final determination from FEMA in terms of what we have a good sense of where they're headed, but to have the final direction on all of how these requirements will be translated to the NFIP requirements. And then, October 2025 is the second package of code updates. And I think that is it.
All right, very good. Colleagues, any questions at this juncture? All right, let's jump into public testimony. I know we have a number of people signed up. Again, you can either testify online or you can testify here at the table. If you come up to the table, we think about 6 inches is probably right. The microphone moves around. You don't need to turn it on or turn it off. And if you could just state your name for the record, you don't need to tell us your address or anything else like that. Obviously, if you are a City of Portland lobbyist, we need to hear that as well. Keelan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll call the first 3 who are in person: Bob Salinger, Travis Williams, and Jan Zuckerman.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Hello, Mayor Wheeler and members of the Portland City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on behalf on the Portland Floodplain Resilience Plan. For the record, my name is Travis Williams, and I'm Executive Director of Willamette Riverkeeper. I'll provide some general context for this plan, and then Willamette Riverkeeper Urban Conservation Director Bob Salinger will outline some specific concerns. You also have a letter from multiple conservation groups and community groups that goes into greater detail. A floodplain is by definition a high-hazard flood area that's subject to periodic inundation. These are locations that are so hazardous that private insurance companies will not insure development in these locations, and the federal government has had to step in and provide the taxpayer-subsidized National Flood Insurance Program, which due to recent flood disasters across the United States is now more than $22 billion in debt. Night after night, we can turn on the news and see one flood disaster after another from New Orleans to Houston to Southern California and onward. Closer to home, we have seen major flood events in Portland, and we're currently acknowledging the 75th anniversary of the tragic Vanport flood. Floodplains are also very productive areas biologically in freshwater systems. The Floodplain Resilience Plan is first and foremost a direct response to a biological opinion, as we've heard, issued in 2016 by the National Marine Fisheries Service, which found that irresponsible floodplain development in Oregon is jeopardizing the continued existence of salmon and southern resident killer whales that depend on salmon for food. These are listed under the Federal Endangered Species Act. Jeopardy decisions are extremely rare and indicative of how serious this situation is. The National Marine Fisheries Service issued 6 reasonable and prudent alternatives to guide communities as to what they needed to do to protect salmon to avoid continuing to violate the ESA. This included things like updating flood maps, increasing protections for floodplains, and establishing strong mitigation policies to address impacts when development does occur in floodplains. Portland has a particularly high responsibility to step up to this challenge. The Portland stretch of the Willamette is the most developed and heavily degraded stretch of the river in Oregon. Every salmon that uses the 187-mile-long Willamette River system and much of the lower Columbia River system must pass through Portland. In order to comply with the BIOP and to do our part to recover salmon, we must significantly improve floodplain protection and mitigation in Portland. I very much appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of City Council. For the record, my name is Bob Salinger. I'm the Urban Conservation Director for Willamette Riverkeeper. I've been involved in this issue since 2009. We were one of the original plaintiffs back in 2009 that led us to this point today. We are also currently suing FEMA for its failure to respond in a timely manner and meet statutory deadlines for its part in this effort. This is an opportunity, an incredible opportunity for the city to step up and walk its talk on climate change and set a state and national standard for protecting floodplains in urban environments. The plan seemed to be on track up until about a year ago when suddenly we began seeing significant weakening of key provisions. We no longer believe that the plan is sufficient to comply with the Endangered Species Act, let alone to protect human health and safety. We believe this failure will put the city and projects that it permits at significant risk of legal challenge under Section 9 of the Endangered Species Act. We've submitted detailed comments on behalf of several organizations that go into our concern, but I'll hit a few of the highlights here. First, this plan does not cover significant portions of the city, including the North Reach, Columbia Corridor, and Johnson Creek. It also exempts industrial lands. We've been hearing about a lack of an EOA for over a decade as an excuse for not advancing environmental protections on industrial lands. It exempts South Waterfront, where some of the most significant projects will occur in the floodplain. This plan will not be implemented for 2 years, allowing some of the biggest projects to come in and get vested before the regulations go into effect. And it gives them up to 7 years, meaning that projects 9 years out may not be subject to this plan. The list is long. We've heard that this is about balancing. In fact, this is about putting the interests of developers ahead of the health and safety of our community and our environment. These changes appear targeted toward one goal, and that is making sure that as few properties as possible actually ever have to comply with these regulations. It covers a tiny area of the city, and the vast majority of projects that occur in the floodplain will not have to follow these regulations if all of these changes are included. Again, we think this will violate the Endangered Species Act, put these projects at real legal jeopardy of being challenged. We look forward to working with you in the next couple of weeks to try and amend this plan to actually make it compliant with the Endangered Species Act. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Travis. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. For the record, my name is Jan Zuckerman. Many of us have listened to your impassioned speeches about your committing to serve the people of Portland. You've shared that as a farm laborer, you have deep connection to land. You've shared that you care about family and community safety, that you've been called to serve and love North Portland, your home. You've demonstrated a common sense data-driven approach, and you've shared that you understand the importance of taking deliberate steps to confront the climate crisis. How do these values play out in weakening a floodplain plan that by all accounts needs to be stronger than ever? How does exempting industry and kicking the can down the road, ignoring what science and experts tell us must be dealt with today, not tomorrow, protect the land, our communities, our salmon, and our economy? These amendments weaken protections and put us all at a risk at a time where we have been witnessing the compound effects of environmental degradation and climate catastrophe all over the globe. Sadly, Portland is not immune to this. According to Mark Rupp, Adaptation Program Director of the Georgetown Climate Center in Washington, the challenge that Hawaii and all states are facing is the ways in which climate change is upending the assumptions that underline the best thought-out plan. What happens when our city can't even do this because we are too busy cowtailing to developers? We cannot allow short-sighted greed of some to take precedence over the safety and well-being of all. I'm a retired school teacher, a mother, and a grandmother. I spend hours daily trying to mitigate the harm that amendments like this create, and honestly, I'm sick of it. And I'm sick in my heart when I look at my grandbabies because I know we've let them down. Our city has declared a climate emergency. We have resolution after resolution promising action. A strong floodplain resiliency plan is exactly that, action. All sections of the river included. No exemptions, no extensions, no loopholes. You get to decide today what kind of future we will have. Please strengthen, not weaken this plan. Thank you.
Next up, we have Paula Doherty, Chelsea Stewart-Fusek, and Dan Rolfe.
Good afternoon. And again, I would ask people to do your level best to keep it at 2 minutes. I obviously won't cut you off right at 2 minutes, but if you could wrap it up at 2 minutes, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and members of the council. My name is Paula Doherty. As a teacher of grade 6 with Portland Public School System, I accompanied my students to outdoor school where they learned about the rights of nature to exist, thrive, and regenerate. I'm here to advocate for the right of nature to be free of development on floodplains. The north reach of the Willamette River, an area known as the critical energy infrastructure, with over 600 fuel storage tanks, sits on a floodplain that was once a braided river. Now, it's a big oil sacrifice zone, an area our city leaders failed to protect in the past and fail to protect today. Why? So big oil can make lots of money. It's cheaper for it to be there than on solid ground. And today, big business developers are chomping at the bit to make money by developing our urban floodplain. Will you protect the floodplains? I mean, why build on flood-prone land at all? Again, the answer's money. Developers can charge a premium for building near the water. And remember that when water-absorbing lowlands are paved and developed, there's absolutely flooding is the result. It's a problem that's getting worse as the planet warms, bringing supercharged storms, rising oceans, and devastating floods. Commissioners, Will you allow yourselves to be bullied, to cave in, as you did with big oil zenith? Or will you adopt a floodplain resilience plan that protects the right of nature from big businesses' insatiable hunger for more?
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chelsea Stewart-Fusick, and I'm an attorney at the Center for Biological Diversity. Portland has known since 2016 that to come into compliance with the Endangered Species Act, it must implement the measures outlined in the biological opinion. Yet now, in 2023, 7 years later, the city is proposing a plan that does not comport with those measures. This plan is riddled with delays, loopholes, and exemptions that will make developers wealthier at the expense of ecosystems and the safety of Portlanders, and this is unacceptable. FEMA's failure to act does not mean that the city of Portland should or can, under the law, delay implementation of the clearly articulated measures in the BIOP. As it stands, FEMA's implementation of the National Flood Insurance Program in Oregon is not shielded from liability under the Endangered Species Act. This means that participating communities who receive NFIP insurance, such as Portland, are also not shielded from liability under the Endangered Species Act right now as it stands. It also opens up new development that occurs under these proposed regulations to legal challenges. We urge the city to adopt a much faster approach to implementing all of the measures recommended by NIMS, and where it has not already done so, we urge the city to adopt all interim measures contained in Element 2 of the Reasonable and Prudent Alternative until permanent protections can be put in place. Those measures require that adverse effects of floodplain development be fully mitigated and with no net loss of habitat function. They were to be in effect by 2021, but here we are in 2023. The exemptions allowed by this plan are unacceptable, and the interim measures should be applied to South Waterfront as soon as possible. The city is doing a disservice to the people who live there, the businesses that operate there, as it places them in danger of life and property losses, and to developers who would be subject to ESA liability should they build there under these regulations. The city should also strongly reconsider any development at Centennial Mills. As climate change causes storms of unprecedented magnitude, causing billions in damage and lives lost, Portland must take a proactive approach to flood resiliency. We need intact floodplains to deal with these storms. It would be a waste of the taxpayers' money to go through with an inadequate plan that will end up having to be challenged due to its noncompliance with the Endangered Species Act. I would also like to remind the city that floodplain damage is often permanent and extinction is forever. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you. I'm Dan Rolfe. I'm on the faculty at Lewis and Clark Law School. And one of my roles here is as an attorney with the law school's environmental law clinic. In that capacity, I've been involved in floodplain conservation issues here in Oregon for at least 15 years, and I'll be testifying in that capacity. The legal bottom line, to expand a little bit on what Chelsea just said, is that according to the expert determinations of the National Marine Fisheries Service, development of floodplains in Oregon kills and injures threatened and endangered salmon and steelhead. Section 9 of the Endangered Species Act makes it illegal to kill or injure threatened and endangered salmon and steelhead. The National Marine Fisheries Service, in its 2016 biological opinion and incidental take statement, clearly spells out the conditions for regulating development in floodplains that will minimize death and injury to salmon and are thus permitted under the Endangered Species Act. The city's latest proposal for its floodplain resilience plan, however, includes important elements, including exceptions to provisions designed to protect salmon and their habitat, and delays in applying those provisions, which are clearly inconsistent with the conditions set forward by NIMS. As a result, city approval of development that falls in these exceptions will violate federal law. Developers carrying out these projects will also violate federal law. Both the city and developers could face enforcement actions by either federal regulators or citizen plaintiffs. Call me old-fashioned, but I submit that it is ill-advised to adopt a plan that will cause violations of federal law. It also seems an inconsistent decision for a city government that has repeatedly emphasized the importance of recovery for salmon, and a city that, ironically, has been certified as salmon safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we have Sarah Taylor, Lynn Handlin, and Bonnie McKinley. they say my name first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Taylor, and I'm very familiar with these issues, and I've worked with Jeff and given some of you tours down by the river. So, I know that I care a lot. So I brought you a present. I also was a former teacher and also a midwife in Portland, and I'm going to give this to you as a present, and this is a picture of the Willamette River. So I'm a little confused when I look at Jeff's maps because it's just not how I have been taught that a floodplain looks. I live up in Forest Park and the creeks flood and the river floods. And as you can see, it is more complex than the map that we've been given. So this is a beautiful picture, and I'm going to give it to all of you to hang somewhere in your building to remind you that the Willamette River is a very complex structure. And as you know, it was a braided river, it was lakes, it was creeks, and we just built on top of it. And it's all still there. I guess that's what amazes me is that just because we build something on top of a creek or on top of a lake, it doesn't disappear, it's still there. And I don't think, like somebody asked the question, who pays? Well, I can tell you, we all pay. There is no greenway trail on the west side of the river. There's no access to the Willamette River for 22 miles. So we all are paying. And the mitigation site at the Linton Plywood Mill is disgraceful. I mean, so that should never be seen as a model. They dug PCBs up and put them next to a daycare center. That's not a model of floodplain resiliency. So even if nothing else, don't do that anymore. So I'll stop now, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynn Handlin. Thanks for the opportunity to testify today. Now is the time for stronger floodplain management, not weaker. The reckless development of urban floodplains in Portland has long put people and property at risk, destroying habitat, harming threatened salmon and other wildlife. I've often seen the damage done in outer southeast Portland because of some of this development. Continued reckless development of floodplains will not solve the housing crisis, but it will put people and wildlife at risk of losses due to flooding. This will only get worse as climate change continues to increase the flooding in the city. You all know climate change is a thing. I'm pretty sure you've said that. The city needs to apply floodplain protections to areas of the city that are not covered by this plan, including north reach of the Willamette, Columbia Corridor, and Johnson Creek. The changes made to this plan to make your developer friends happy must be removed, including no exemption for south waterfront floodplain protections. Industrial land should not be exempted. Why would you do that? Is industry somehow immune from flooding hazards? No 2-year delay. You all need to act now, not 2 years from now. No reason to wait. No 7-year vesting for existing projects. This pretty much throws the whole thing out the window. Remove loopholes for existing building in floodplains when they're substantially modified. They should comply. Apply the highest floodplain standards to Centennial Mills. City council members, including the mayor, are elected by and work for the people of Portland, not developers and not Zenith Energy. A fact some of you, or all of you, seem to have forgotten. The proposed floodplain resilience plan has been weakened because of your influence by developer friends. The era of damaging backroom deals between the city council members and industry leaders must end now. This is your chance to get it right. Do the right thing for our communities, strengthen the floodplain resilience plan, do it to protect the people, do it to protect wild salmon and not violate Endangered Species Act, do it to show you care, or at least do it because you want to be reelected someday. Thank you.
Next up, Bonnie McKinley.
I'm not seeing my image, but that's okay. I'm Bonnie McKinley. I'm here. Thank you. We are rattled. We are rattled by weather reports with the descriptors record-breaking, largest, catastrophic,
What happened? Let's go on to the next person. We'll get her back on. She must have disconnected by accident.
Next up, we have Jenny O'Connor.
Oh, wait, Bonnie's reconnect. Jenny, go ahead and have a seat. Bonnie, are you back?
I'm back.
Sorry.
Do
Okay.
I start over yet?
No, it's just start from where you were.
We are rattled. We are rattled by weather reports with the descriptors record-breaking, largest, catastrophic, unprecedented. Portland must take all steps to develop a plan that protects the river environment from extreme flooding events for the people and the creatures who thrive on the river. It is clear that Portland requires an updated and unbreachable floodplain resilience plan. Officials must utilize science-based, not developer-approved, floodplain planning. Officials must strengthen floodplain policies. Officials must allow no special exemptions, no delays. Officials must insist on 100% compliance. Keep us from being rattled by news of future flooding disasters on our waterways. Help Portland become unprecedented in its capacity to protect its people, its river life, its river ecosystem, its river vitality. Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie.
For the record, my name is Jenny O'Connor. I can't help but wonder if all of you understand all of the components that your staff just reviewed. I've been looking at this for 3 days and I still can't make sense of it. So you're the policymakers. Do you understand? Do you understand all those? Anyway, my comment after going through all this is that the floodplain resilience plan is inadequate. And if you pass it as it is now, then you're probably opening up the city for legal action. And this has been said by previous people. Another thing that Bob said, for example, the plan exempts the south waterfront. It excludes the north reach of Columbia, the Columbia Quarter, and Johnson Creek. A comprehensive flood plan incorporates the whole area. And that's not happening here. You're taking one area and you're saying we're going to take this one and we're going to wait on this one, and there's really not any logic to it. I did speak with your staff and he explained why you're doing it. But again, it's not going to comply with the, it doesn't meet the obligations of the Endangered Species Act, bottom line. If you look at it, I went through it and I was trying to find out where things, lined up with the Endangered Species Act and incorporated it. I couldn't find anything, and I feel like it's your responsibility to go through all this yourselves, like I did, so you know what the consequences are. I guess I'm asking you, are you willing to take the risk to pass it as it is, or are you going to go back to the drawing board and ask your staff to put together a comprehensive plan, that puts all the pieces together and considers how this affects this and this affects this? It's not there right now. So that's my ask of you as our responsible city policymakers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Catherine Thomason in person.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners and Mayor Wheeler. My name is Dr. Catherine Thomason, and I'm speaking as chair of the Multnomah County Democrats Climate Action Team. Superstorm Sandy flooded the New York subway and homes and buildings. It was a wake-up call. People died trapped in elevators or unable to get to the ground floor to get out. Sea level rise and tidal incursion is happening. We need to be prepared and protected now. The overall plan seems inadequate based on all that I've been hearing and what I've read. I'm really concerned that climate deniers and just the ill-informed who put profit before human health and safety from an inevitable flood have sway and have convinced this ongoing exemption of areas of the city from implementation. Since we have been under an order since 2016 and to develop a reasonable plan as well to protect our salmon, the city should adopt the floodplain protections as described by NIMS until permanent protections can be in place. Flooding industrial areas and dumping more pollutants into our river is not protection. We must not delay the inclusion of these areas that we've been hearing about here. This means going back to the drawing board and including them as soon as possible. And then when the plan is finalized, to have it go into immediate effect. Because the developers and others who need to know for certain what's going to happen have been hearing about this plan for quite some time. To make it worse, the current floodplain maps are not including the most recent climate change and impact models. I'm really glad they've included nearly 30-year-old maps from the 1996 flood. We should be working on a plan to move development above ground and not just adding to it in the current river areas. So I really appreciate the opportunity to testify and hope we can move forward. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Next up, we have Brian Posowitz online, followed by Mary Stites and Christy White.
Hi, everybody. Mayor Wheeler, members of the council, thank you for the chance to testify today. My name is Brian Posowitz. I am here on behalf of Humane Voters Oregon. Humane Voters Oregon is an Oregon-only nonprofit working in Oregon's political process and elections to promote the humane treatment of animals, which includes fish and wildlife. We support better protection and restoration of Portland's floodplains because functioning floodplains help provide habitat for wildlife, which we believe enriches the lives of people living, working, and visiting here. Functioning floodplains also help improve water quality in the Willamette River, which still has many problems, including the fact that it gets too warm at certain times of the year for threatened salmon and steelhead. Improving the river's water quality will also be good for these fish and also for animals that depend on fish to survive, including killer whales living in the ocean. I will defer to the advocates working more closely on this issue to point out how the proposed floodplain plan and amendments fail to go far enough, but we do support the comments that have been made so far in that regard, including failure to apply the requirements more quickly and exempting certain areas. In general, we support making Portland's floodplain protections as robust as possible, and we support doing that as soon as possible. Thank you for considering my comments.
Thanks, Brian.
Next up, Mary Stites.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Stites, and I'm an attorney with the Northwest Environmental Defense Center. Since 2016, the City of Portland has known that substantial reforms are necessary to bring the NFIP into compliance with the ESA. Consequently, Portland must adopt these reforms to remain eligible to receive federal flood insurance. I cannot understate how crucial these reforms are to bolstering our state's resilience to flooding events and ensuring communities are protected from the inevitable exposure to these disasters. The city's multi-phase approach is only kicking the can down the road and effectively exempts some of the city's most valuable floodplains from compliance with the regulatory requirements of the BIOP. This is nonsensical for two reasons. One, the obvious economic and public health imperative to make sure that our land use decisions comport with common sense, exposure-reducing floodplain management. And second, because these reforms are necessary to ensure that the City of Portland is complying with federal law. The longer it takes for the city to implement the BIOP, the more likely it is that the city and individuals can be held liable under Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act. This is inexcusable because we have the answer for what needs to be done. NIMS has clearly outlined the regulatory reforms that must occur to bring the program into compliance with federal law. It's also important to recognize that NIMS projected that these reforms would be fully in effect by January of 2021. The plan continually punts, stating that they are waiting for FEMA. However, FEMA is not and will not be able to substantially divert from the measures articulated in the BIOP, so the city can rest assured knowing that they can implement even the interim measures as expeditiously as possible, and they will be on a good path towards maintaining NFIP eligibility and an even better path towards bolstering our city's resilience to flooding events. I urge the City of Portland to lead by example and proactively implement the terms of the BIOP. This plan, through its phased approaches, ongoing delays, and series of exemptions, has no teeth for the city's most important floodplains. The BIOP does not allow for this kind of bifurcation, and continued delays only subjects communities to further legal and environmental exposure. The city must promptly act to implement the elements of the BIOP in order to comply with federal law and to ensure that the city has bolstered its resilience to the effects of climate change. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Christy White, Chris Fry, and Paul Fishman.
Good afternoon. I'm Christy White, representing the Zidell family in the South Waterfront. Following me, you will hear from our floodplain and natural resource experts. Without question, maintaining this exemption in the South Waterfront is consistent with the 2016 BIOP and certainly doesn't violate the ESA. Let me explain. Recognizing SOA as a critical land supply within the central city, the city and Metro went to work in 2000 and 2003 with the following actions. One, Metro and the city exempted SOA from balance cut and fill. This does not mean that SOA is not flood safe. All development in SOA complies with the Title 24 floodproofing requirements. Two, the city adopted a new code for SOA for the area to encourage high-density housing and office development to meet the city's housing and employment needs. Extensive public and private investment followed and was deployed to build the richest multimodal hub in the region to support this density with the Tillicum Bridge, light rail extension, streetcar extension, aerial tram, bicycle, and pedestrian infrastructure. Retaining this existing balanced cut and fill exemption is critical to realizing this significant public and private investment in infrastructure that will serve thousands of housing units at all income levels in the central city. And most importantly here, none of this will have an impact on floodplain capacity or endangered species for a number of reasons that you're about to hear. The first is that the only floodplain area that will be redeveloped at Zidell that is remaining has no connection to the river and is surrounded by land that is higher than the floodplain elevation. In other words, it's an isolated remnant. Filling this area to build residential uses will have absolutely no impact on floodplain storage. Second, and very importantly here, the remaining area in the floodplain has already received a conditional letter of map revision, which includes FEMA concurrence in 2021 that the fill of this isolated and disconnected floodplain area will have no impact on endangered species. Thus, any argument that maintaining the exemption violates the ESA or the 2016 BIOP is simply wrong. And I'm going to stop there and turn it to Chris Fry, our floodplain expert, who I believe is virtual.
Yeah, there he is.
Thanks, Christy. And I was hoping to share my screen to be able to show a couple slides. Let's see if I can do this. Hopefully that's showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see
Good
it.
afternoon. My name is Chris Fry. I'm a certified floodplain manager and professional engineer with Watershed Science and Engineering, and I'll be discussing flood mapping as it relates to the Zidell property on the South Waterfront. So on this slide on the left is a historical flood map circa 2015 that shows how flooding existed in 2015 following construction of the Tillicum Bridge crossing. The Zidell site here is bordered in yellow. The Willamette River is kind of the hatched area to the right. Oops. Bear with me. The Ross Island Bridge runs along the bottom of this picture, and the Tillicum Crossing is the area in the middle, right in the middle, above the W. The blue area is 100-year flooding that reaches the South Waterfront and the Zidell property via a backwater path from the Willamette River. So the orange is the area that's outside the floodplain. Construction of the Tillicum Crossing bisected that flow path. So you see the white area that kind of bisects that blue blob. However, the remaining floodplain south of the Tillicum Crossing could not be removed from the floodplain maps because the Tillicum Crossing is not certified with FEMA as an accredited flood control structure. So in 2016, the picture on the right, Zidell submitted an updated survey to FEMA that showed much of the property was already above the 100-year flood elevation. And those areas were removed from flood mapping as shown. The remaining blue areas are disconnected and isolated floodplain that are essentially remnants of historical mapping and cannot be removed because the Tillicum Crossing is not a certified levee. Here's a look north from the Ross Island Bridge at the site showing the Tillicum Crossing with the elevation 42.6, essentially 10 feet above the floodplain, high ground along the bank of the Willamette, and then to the left is the low-lying areas that are currently in the floodplain. In 2021, Zidell submitted a conditional letter of map revision to FEMA asking if filling these isolated areas shown in blue would allow them to be removed from FEMA maps. This included submitting a biological assessment, documenting that the fill would not represent a take on ESA-listed species. FEMA concurred that the site could be removed if the floodplain was filled, and in doing so, concurred with the assessment that such fill would comply with ESA. Finally, practically speaking, filling these areas would not impact flood storage or flood elevations because they are isolated from the Willamette during the FEMA 100-year event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul Fishman, and I was the project manager and team ecologist for the Zidell Waterfront Environmental Remediation Project. My almost 60 years experience as an ecologist includes many dozens of projects on the Willamette River. First, I want to dispel the notion that the isolated low areas that Chris just talked about on the Zidell site have any value for fish, specifically those listed under the ESA. These areas have zero habitat value for fish. They are not areas of critical habitat as defined by NOAA Fisheries. They do not flood during normal high water. It's important to understand that the FEMA floodplain is not necessarily an ecological unit. The ecological values of floodplains are for those areas that are frequently inundated or what are termed functional floodplains. While the NOAA Fisheries biological opinion for the flood insurance program does not offer an ecological definition of floodplain, the term floodplain, it does discuss seasonal floodplain wetlands, fringing floodplains, adjoining floodplains, functioning floodplains, complex floodplain habitats, regularly inundated floodplains, and laterally linked floodplain habitats. The low areas on the Zidell site that you just saw are none of the above. The design of the remediation project that we implemented in 2010 and 2011 included numerous elements that are priority actions for the salmon recovery plan for the lower Willamette River. NOAA Fisheries ESA consultation we went through found that the project in the language of the ESA was not likely to jeopardize the continued existence of listed salmonid species or result in the destruction of adverse modification of designated critical habitat for those species. In fact, the remediation project created a large gain of habitat value for fish and wildlife to the extent that no mitigation was required by the federal agencies or the state. This is an important point to include in any future discussions about the Zidell property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Michael Harrison, followed by John Paul LeBrun and Judy Zur.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Harrison. I'm the Director of Local Relations for OHSU. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Our Schnitzer campus, located in South Waterfront, consists mostly of brownfields that are capped by gravel, roads, or building foundations. Nearly all of the vegetation was removed by heavy industrial activities that occurred long before OHSU owned the land. The South Waterfront exemption reduces the need for disturbing the DEQ-approved brownfield caps as we build new buildings and reduces the need for digging up contaminated soils and transporting these soils great distances by diesel trucks during development. We put considerable efforts into ensuring our buildings in South Waterfront are resilient. Examples include minimizing critical services on floors that could flood, all the way to installing measures to counteract buoyancy effects. These mitigation features will allow OHSU to return to operations in a reasonable amount of time after water recedes, even in a 500-year flood. The city's comprehensive plan calls for full development of OHSU's land in South Waterfront. We share that goal, but it's also the city's goal to fully develop our lands in South Waterfront, meaning that we can't balance cut and fill. We can't cut on our land. Otherwise, we'd have a building, and then a big hole on our property. So that would, without an exemption, we'd be forced into the private mitigation banking system, which makes it very hard to plan 40 years into the future for your campus. Recently, we found that there was a 10-fold increase in the price of the private mitigation banking system, and it's extremely difficult regulatory process to create new mitigation banking systems. So we appreciate the city, we appreciate city staff recognizing the importance of keeping an over 20-year-old exemption for South Waterfront. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Next up, we have John Paul LeBrun, Judy Zer, Cassie Cohen, online.
Hello, my name is Cassie Cohen. I'm the Executive Director of Portland Harbor Community Coalition. We represent communities who've been disproportionately impacted by contamination in the Willamette River from the Portland Harbor Superfund site. A culmination of 150 plus years of industrial pollution settled at the bottom of the river and shorelines. I testified many months ago to share with planners in the Planning and Sustainability Commission about my floodplain concerns related to exemptions for profitable landowners and delays for protections in areas that need it the most. Planners today noted the themes of the majority of comments received from community members at that time. Unfortunately, I'm still concerned because I don't hear those concerns have been addressed in the current plan. This floodplain plan, as it is now, continues to threaten endangered species. It continues to exclude the North Reach, the Portland Harbor Superfund site, industrial sanctuary zone, otherwise known as sacrificial zone, affecting wildlife and people who live, work, learn, pray, and recreate in that area. The North Reach is the first area this summer to be affected by the harmful algae blooms in the river, which is no coincidence. On-site riparian buffer habitat is not only critical to endangered species dependent on the river, but also for people who desperately need access to nature and who seek climate resiliency. So you as commissioners and also Bureau leaders today are faced with the choice to use your power to serve the interest of either wealthy developers and property owners, or to serve the climate and environmental justice communities and endangered species. Thank you for your time today.
Next up, we have Micah Meskel, followed by David Moskowitz and Sarah Baker.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Micah Meskel, and I'm with Portland Audubon. I'm the Assistant Conservation Director. As Commissioner Rubio noted in her intro, multiple bureaus and with very different missions partook in the crafting of this policy, and consensus was hard, and the outcome, as is too often the case, left the environmental and community concerns to lose out due to the pressure from developers and industrial interests. Implementing this plan should be an opportunity for city leadership to take a significant and timely step towards increasing our community's climate resilience and doing its part to protect significant wildlife habitat along the Willamette River. But the plan, as currently written, includes significant exemptions for special interests and unnecessarily delays the protections it will put in place for 2 years. You've already heard about the potential legal risk of delaying the implementation of this policy, so I won't belabor the point on that, but I'll talk to a couple of the key exemptions. Our top ask is, we have many asks. So one is to remove key exemptions for industrial zone lands and South Waterfront. I'll speak briefly to OHSU and their testimony. We support the mission of OHSU and the expansion of their facilities. And we think it is very inconsistent with their mission for them to oppose protections that are designed to protect people and impacts of flooding in that floodplain zone. To speak to Zidell, as they propose to bring a highest density of development to sort of model South Waterfront in an area in South Waterfront that was completely underwater during the 1996 flood. Putting humans into that space, even if it's disconnected from the river, is still a huge hazard. And I will finish off with that we strongly urge the city to make these significant steps to improve the plan. And we welcome the opportunity for all of your offices to entertain amendment concepts to bring it to a space that actually fulfills your climate goals and your human safety goals into the future.
Thank you.
Next up is Sarah Baker.
Welcome, Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah Baker. The health of our city requires long-term solutions that consider the quality of life for all Portlanders and the health of our natural habitat. I'm hearing, with the history of the Vanport tragedy, it is baffling that we are even considering building housing in a floodplain. I'm hearing today a lot of talk about ways to ensure insurance for residents in the proposed housing on the floodplain, but there's no amount of insurance that can cover the loss of life and the loss of our natural habitat. Irresponsible floodplains, this is to quote Bob Salinger, irresponsible floodplain development harms salmon and other fish and wildlife species, destroys habitat, and puts people and property at risk. In an age of climate change where we are seeing more and more extreme weather events, it is all the more important that we have strong floodplain policies in place. Today, you have the opportunity to make decisions that can either harm or heal the future of our community, and I ask that you choose to put the community and our environment first. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is David Moskowitz.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Commissioners, my name is David Moskowitz. I'm with a group called the Conservation Angler, and we're a wild fish advocacy organization. I used to work for National Marine Fisheries Service writing regulatory rules for all of this since 1997, and subsequently worked for Metro as a salmon recovery coordinator. And I worked with Portland and the 23 other cities in the region and 3 counties trying to figure out how we were going to protect these newly listed fish. That was 23 years ago. And here we are, struggling to kind of figure it out. The salmon and steelhead that pass upstream, the adults coming back are generally, they're great swimmers. That's why they're so much fun to catch. They're going to zoom through this area. But what the city has created, the development of the city over history has now created a bottleneck for the juveniles trying to make it out. And salmon go by, they're a numbers game. They have a ton of eggs in them when they're going by as adults going upstream. Those eggs translate into a whole lot of juveniles coming down. And that's where we're losing these fish. And the city development, if you think about this, and I was going to say some other things, but hearing some of the developers speak just a few moments ago, they're not addressing this holistically. They're looking at their little spot. And that's what we've done in this entire process, is allow individual landowners to kind of protect their land, and we're not thinking about the public trust and the entire interest of citizens, not just in Portland, but all over, for salmon that can make it through this bottleneck. We have basically, I think, does that mean my time is up? That's amazing. 2 minutes is quite a bit of time. I have comments that I'll send in writing. We incorporate the remarks that Bob Salinger and Travis Williams remarked, but flooding is going to get worse, so I may finish. Flooding is going to get worse because every single day, jurisdictions upstream from Portland, commissioners just like you are making decisions incrementally to allow development along the rivers. It's going to get nothing but harder and nothing but more difficult since we're downstream. We urge you to take action that thinks about that broad, general degradation that's going to continue to happen in the watershed. Because no matter what you do down here, what happens upstream is going to make it very difficult to protect people, water quality, and the fish. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions. Sorry, I went over time.
Not a problem. And you'll submit your testimony in writing as well.
I will.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Harriet Cook, Andrea Sanchez, and Scott Shurtleff.
Welcome.
Welcome. Good to see you again. I'm here to my name's Harriet Cook, and I'm here to testify for a strong floodplain resilience plan. I appreciate the work that has been done to improve the floodplain regulations, but I'm here to support the recommendations of the Willamette River Keepers and withdrawing the amendments and strengthening the plan. We should not be modeling from 1996. The coming decades of climate change are going to increase the frequency and severity of flood events, as we've heard. A strong floodplain plan is critical for Portland's climate strategy. Floodplains are not only essential for the protection from floodwaters and river life, they're also a significant carbon sink. And we are way behind the 8 ball of cutting emissions. We need to be thinking sequestration, sequestration, sequestration. Floodplain biological integrity serves, we should not have exemptions. This should be holistic, as we've heard other speakers speak about. We should not be delaying implementing the plan unless we can delay climate change, and we haven't figured out a way to do that. It's going faster than we could have imagined. The city must move forward to apply floodplain protections to areas not covered by this plan. And as we watch our native populations and the wildlife that lives off of them drastically decline, headed for extinction, mitigation strategies that involve any kind of dredging, what do you think that's going to do for this already compromised salmon population? Thank you.
Next up, we have Andrea Sanchez online.
Hello, my name is Andrea Sanchez. I'm Shoshone, Bannock, and Tarascan and Mexican. I have 5 children, and I just wanted to say this town.
Andrea, I'm sorry we're losing you. Do you have a better connection?
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Now I can, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to say when this town was illegally built with no permission from the natives, these very toxic companies built their buildings around our natural freshwater resources. This will and is very poisonous for human and animal consumption. Emerging in the water can cause disease and issues with health and well-being. Companies like Simplot, the community dump, the steel mill, the old paper mill, the sewage issues, these negligent places, these buildings for profit have impacted the air, water around, not to mention all the pesticides around Sovi's Island from farming, not organically. Also, not to mention the old toxic radiation plant down the river caused the water to heat up. There is so many issues. They have not been addressed and need an update immediately. our salmon and wildlife is being impacted in all these areas. We need change made immediately, and those toxic places moved away from the river area. This is all, but we need action, not just talking. Water is life that impacts salmon, eagles, birds, different species of fish, and human children, babies. What falls from heaven, water goes back to heaven and back again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners, my name is Scott Shurtleff. I'm here today to advocate for a strong floodplain resilience plan that protects undeveloped floodplains and requires resilient, water-friendly adaptations in any and all developed floodplain areas today. I fully support Willamette Riverkeeper's recommendations. I draw on my wisdom from Erica Gee's book, Water Always Wins, Thriving in an Age of Drought and Deluge. In her book, Erica lays out the case for strong floodplain protections as a vital step for human adaptation to climate change. Most of our existing water-adjacent and water-related infrastructure is actually making water problems more severe, especially as climate change progresses. We've aimed to divert water, channel her, and move her quickly along on her journey to the ocean. Climate change is going to make water move even more quickly due to rapid snowmelt and more frequent, more intense deluges. Our water infrastructure does the opposite of what water wants. Water wants places to spread out and slow down. Giving water the space she wants to spread out and stay a while allows water to soak into the earth, replenishing our life-sustaining groundwater supply. Allowing space also reduces her potential for angry, fast-flowing channels that undercut and damage human structures. Over time, water always wins. She can be life-giving, but she can also be destructive and life-taking. This floodplain resilient plan represents a choice of which aspect she'll show us. We need to give water what she wants, since we need water for ourselves and for a healthy environment. Let's choose to encourage water's life-giving side with a strong floodplain resilience plan that gives her space to slow down, replenish our aquifers, and coexist peacefully with our existing infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. And after the next three that Keelan is going to mention, we'll take a 5-minute break. We want to give our broadcasters and everybody an opportunity to get up and stretch. So it'll just be a brief break after the next three individuals.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up, we have Lori King online, followed by Alice Shapiro and Howard Shapiro in person.
Hi, this is really not Lori King. This is her husband. And my remarks are probably not what she would say. But thank you for the opportunity. Lori wasn't able to be here, and she would be a lot more focused. This is an interesting process to watch you guys trying to stay awake during this everybody's testimony until the South Waterfront starts testifying, and then eyes open and we get really interested. I'm amazed that you guys don't have more of a big picture view of what's going on here. You tend to listen to the people that create the problems and ignore the people that really care and live here and have the solutions. Money is cause of homelessness. If there was a lower rent, we wouldn't have homelessness. Just one thing and another, the developers cause a lot of problems, and you guys need to listen to the people that are talking to you from the community. That's basically all I have to say. Thanks.
Next up, we have Alice Shapiro and Howard Shapiro.
Welcome.
Alice Shapiro, good afternoon. I just want to say I am here to support a strong floodplain management plan, and I agree with Willamette Riverkeeper's statements and some of the other environmental groups and other very eloquent speakers. I don't need to repeat the facts that have been presented to you and the threats to endangered species and the consequences for you in terms of being sued for not following those. But I will speak a little bit personally. I moved to Portland about 15 years ago from the Oregon coast, and I was excited to witness the birth of my first Portland granddaughter, who just started high school today, by the way, and become an important part of her life, and then of her sister born 2 years later, who went back to middle school today here in Portland. I have always known that I had an obligation for generations to come, and my obligation did not end when my two granddaughters no longer required or even wanted, God forbid, my babysitting services. I am here to represent future generations, not just of my offspring, but of all offspring, not just of my species, but of all species. And I urge you to not only have a strong climate protection and floodplain plan, but an even stronger one. One of the things that impressed me when I moved to Portland was to see the trucks of the city that said, "Portland, a city that works." Sometimes over the years, I've begun to feel, I am sorry to say, that Portland has in some ways become the city that shirks its responsibilities to the holistic approach to protect the land, the species, and all of us. Climate is changing faster than we can imagine. We need to be aware. We need to be strong. We need to work. If Portland can't do it, who can? Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name's Howard Shapiro. I would like to take this opportunity to compliment you on your attempt to prepare for the huge change in our city government that the voters approved in the last election. Our city has very complicated land use and development policies, which take an inordinate amount of time and effort to approve. This became obvious to me when I relocated from Florence, Oregon, where I served on the Lane County Planning Commission. I would like to comment on your plan. Exempting developers and businesses or corporations from our land use laws will not streamline the process, but could result in inferior building practices and might be discriminatory to provide homeowners who want to add an ADU to help with our homeless problem. It would also possibly be against state and county land use policies. In this era of climate change and resulting flooding, wetlands are becoming extremely important. We must learn from Vanport, which Henry Kaiser in Portland City never thought would happen. And that have degraded their wetlands and floodplains. These communities become severely damaged or washed away. We must be conscious of our existing habitats and its occupants, many of whom are endangered or on the brink of extinction. We do have a severe homeless problem. Please don't allow the developers and business interests to motivate you into allowing shoddy construction practices in order to attempt to solve this problem. They will build high-rent waterfront properties and will still have a lot of homeless. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Does that complete the three then?
It does.
All right, so we'll do this. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene at about 12 after. We are in recess.
Recording stopped.
Folks, we are back in session. Keelan, why don't you go ahead and call the next three, please?
Great, thank you, Mayor. Next up, we have Katie McFadden, followed by Emily Polenchek and Diane Miesenhelter.
All right.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilmen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for working to develop a plan that will take care of water. I feel that the plan needs a little bit more work. It should definitely include what we call the sacrifice zone, the North Reach, the CEI hub, which is not in it. Just before I left, I picked this up from my mailbox. Columbia Riverkeeper. And I just want to read 2 sentences from it that sort of add to statements that have already happened. It's time to get real about salmon extinctions and the ripple effects on the people and culture that rely on them. The facts will jar you. The Columbia once produced more salmon than any other river on Earth. 20 years ago, Pacific salmon were found to have disappeared from 40% of their rivers, native rivers and streams across Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and California. In places where they remain, including the Columbia River system, scientists estimate that the number of wild fish returning from the ocean has decreased by as much as 98%. These are startling figures. I come from the East Coast. I'm familiar with what happens when the water rises. I was raised with hurricanes. I saw houses coming and going. Bad land management, bad zoning. Let's not repeat that. We have some really serious climate issues on the horizon. We should do what we can to direct the city and take care of the environment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Polenchek. I live in the Fano Creek watershed now in Multnomah Village, and I am testifying, guess how, in favor of strengthening the floodplain resilience plan. I agree with everything that's been said so far. Sent you something I wrote yesterday, but today I decided to do an online search to understand more. And opened one of the many sites one can, this one of American Rivers, titled Why We Need to Restore Floodplains. There I learned floodplains are actually part of rivers. They nurture life and naturally protect us from floods. It talked about small floods that are very beneficial and necessary to the health of rivers and wildlife, and large floods that are very destructive to life and in other ways. So restoring floodplains to give rivers more room to accommodate large floods is the best way to keep communities safe. Giving rivers more room provides a number of other benefits, including clean water, recreation and trails, habitat for fish and wildlife. So just big picture here, wouldn't the best floodplain resilience plan be to restore floodplains to their natural state and not allow new structures to be built on them? Wouldn't this approach be superior to the balanced cut and fill plan? Short of that, I beg you to apply stringent regulations and mitigation rules to all new construction in a timely way. No exemptions or delays, as many others have said. And finally, as previously mentioned, since Portland declared a climate emergency in 2020, I beg you to consider every decision you make in light of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Diane Miesenhelter online.
Welcome.
Hi,
The city must deliver a strong floodplain resilience plan that will protect people, property, and the environment as an essential part of your climate resilience strategy. It seems that at the 11th hour, the city has again caved to business efforts to weaken and delay a plan that has been years in the making and was using the best available science. Irresponsible projects in high-risk areas built for profit, knowing that losses may be recouped at taxpayers' expense, should not be allowed without strong mitigation requirements. The city must remove recent changes to the draft by developers and other special interests. Centennial Mills should have the highest floodplain standards, and South Waterfront and industrial land should not be exempted. The implementation of the plan must not be delayed for 2 years. We are already experiencing more extreme weather and climate chaos throughout the country, and floodplains are increasingly likely to be periodically inundated. We need to have strong policies in place to protect people, species, habitats, and sequestration areas. Once the FEMA updates are finalized, additional amendments could be made if necessary. Areas such as the north reach of the Willamette, the Columbia Corridor, Johnson Creek, and various industrial areas should be part of an initial implementation, a comprehensive plan with adequately mitigated development standards. The city should not vest already permitted projects for 7 years, and modifications to existing structures should not be exempted from new regulations. Floodplain maps need to be updated to incorporate current climate and flood impact models to give a full and accurate picture of what we are facing. Not only has the city not put in place policies that will strongly reduce emissions as called for in the climate emergency plan, but at this critical time, council continues to undermine existing environmental protections in small and huge ways. Policies that endanger habitats and species while ignoring the health and safety of our community for the sake of profiteers must stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Sharice Bach, Michael Pouncil, and Peter Finley Fry.
You want to go ahead and start?
Yes. Hello. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for this chance to comment, and Bureau for the hard work you've already put in on this plan. My name is Sharice Bach, and I work for 350 PDX, which is a local environmental and climate organization that works with thousands of Portlanders to advocate for transition away from fossil fuels and building a more climate resilient community. So while it's important to do everything that we can to stop and reverse the greenhouse gas emissions leading to climate change, at this point, we unfortunately must also prepare for a warmer planet in the coming decades and do what we can to mitigate the harm that comes from extreme weather events. As the planet warms, major storms become more frequent and more severe. As the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change puts it, in the near term, every region in the world is projected to face further increases in climate hazards, including flooding in coastal and other low-lying cities and regions like Portland. Portland has experienced climate extremes in recent years, and that has included ice storms and unusual spring snow. Eastern Oregon recently had the tail end of a hurricane. Sudden temperature shifts could cause future ice and snowstorms to result in flooding, or warmer storms could cause major precipitation events on par with or exceeding the 1996 floods. The IPCC says planning with past 100-year storms as a guideline is inadequate. We need to plan for more severe events. Creating and implementing a strong floodplain resilience plan that takes climate change into account can help our city and region be more prepared. And the IPCC suggests ecosystem-based adaptation approaches are really important in that. Given the already occurring incidents of climate emergencies in and around Portland, it's essential that the city's floodplain resilience plan begin to be implemented right away, that it applies to everyone, that it prepares for events more extreme than the 1996 floods, and that the plan includes ecosystem-based approaches. Imposing a 2-year delay and allowing loopholes for development will create unnecessary risk and potential economic harm. Protecting river and forest ecosystems helps the human and ecological community thrive and helps us all be more resilient together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guess I'm next. Thank you for the opportunity today, Commissioners and Mayor. My name is Michael Pouncil. I live in North Portland. First, I would like to say that I am a BPS Land Use Planning Commissioner, and I am here to represent myself and my community. So whatever I have to say is not a representation of BPS Planning Commissioners. The city needs to adopt a floodplain protection plan as described by the National Marine Fisheries Service. And that needs to happen quickly to make sure that North Portlanders are protected in the event of a flood that we know will happen within our lifetimes. It's important to make sure that Portland's climate strategy will be prepared for more extreme flood events. It's important that we follow a consensus of science, and we know through science that a floodplain plan in the North Reach will benefit not only endangered Willamette River salmon, but also protect homes, businesses, and the ecology of the area. Removing loopholes for existing structures in the floodplain plan when existing structures are substantially modified, they should have to comply with new protections. Portlanders need faith in our public leaders and that they are using scientific consensus to ensure benefits and not a consensus or a capitulation to businesses, risking the well-being of Portlanders and the ecology. Willamette and the Columbia River are essential access to Portland. With the extreme heat that we've experienced in the past month, it's important that we provide protections and show reciprocity to our water bodies that move through and around our city. It is heartbreaking that people were suffering from 100-degree temperatures and could not access the Willamette River because of the cyanobacteria. There are solutions to these risks, and it's important that we move with urgency to make sure that Portlanders are safe before an extreme event occurs. And we need all of you to move forward to create a climate resilient landscape. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here.
Hi, I'm Peter Finley Fry. I'm a land use planner. I'm here on my own behalf, although I also am chair of the Central Eastside Industrial Council Land Use Committee. I'm talking about a little leak on the east side. It's underneath I-5 and I-84, and it leaks underneath the freeway south along the rail line. And as a result of the construction of the freeway, it's not a natural floodway, a natural floodplain. It's a man-made situation. And so we reviewed this Central East Side through the Land Use Committee, and they talked to the Bureau of Planning. The Bureau of Planning worked with Central East Side and came to a solution, which was to include the mapping of the floodplain on the map so that the issues that are technical could be addressed, but not to put the environmental overlay because there is no habitat there. There has been, but we've destroyed that 100 years ago or more. And so we didn't want to get in a position where we could not create habitat on site. We would have to mitigate, so it'd be essentially a way for the city to exact payment out of that little area. So the Bureau of Planning understood the logic of all that, and they, in fact, as you see, mapped it for the technical part, which is floodproofing, and I wanted to add displacement. That the attorney mentioned floodproofing, but displacement is almost as important as floodproofing. That's it. I felt like a little mouse. I didn't even want to bring this up with everybody else talking about the west side, but I felt I told the Planning Bureau I would be here. I really appreciate their their professionalism. It was, they did an excellent job. I will want to say one last thing as a planner. Planners never solve any problems. Plans create a framework for people to solve problems. So for anyone to come here and say the plan's going to solve a problem, that's not going to ever happen. I guarantee you. It's the people that will solve the problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you.
Our last testifier is Zora Hess online.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Zora Hess. I'm a consultant and community activist at the intersection of health equity, houselessness, and the environment. For the last 20 years, I have been kayaking the Columbia and Willamette River Basin and clearing out trash of the Columbia Slough every month for over 7 years. When we have high water events, I have witnessed the capabilities of a functioning wetlands, but I've also seen the devastating impacts where we have prioritized large development. We have a climate and a housing crisis. You are tasked with mitigating both, not implementing policies that escalate them and create worse outcomes for our community. It is critical that we have a strong floodplain protection policies for the health of our community and environment, not the interests of and the benefits of a few. That means the city must move forward quickly to apply floodplain protections to the area of the city that are not covered by the plan, including the north reach of the Willamette, the Columbia Corridor, and Johnson Creek. Adopt interim floodplain protection as prescribed by the National Marine Fisheries Service until permanent protections can be put in place. Remove exemptions for industrial zone lands and the south waterfront. Remove the 2-year delay in implementing the plan. Do not extend vesting for projects permitted before new regulations go into effect for up to 7 years. Remove all loopholes for existing structures and floodplains. Hold all public projects like Centennial Mills to the highest level of flood protection plans. I'm not saying that you should stop all development in floodplains. Rather, we need to protect the highest hazard flood areas and be mindful that any plans for development are adequately mitigated. This is our opportunity to protect endangered species, people, property, and our environment for generations to come. Please take it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that completes testimony.
All right, very good. So that completes public testimony. Colleagues, any questions at this particular juncture? Again, we're not going to vote today. This was just an opportunity to hear public testimony and hear the arguments pro and con. I know I want to spend a little more time with you guys over the course of the next week going through some of the questions that were raised and it raised some questions in my mind. But I don't know if people want to ask questions now or if you've just had a long day at this point.
Can I ask one procedural question?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Do you mind reminding us on the logic of the sequencing with respect to areas like South Waterfront, North area? Because we've heard a lot of citizens interested in this, and so I'm just curious. High level, you walked me through it before, but just a reminder as to the thinking on the phasing and all of this.
Sure. Patricia Diefendorfer for the record. Thank you for the question. So the phasing recognizes that there are very different land uses and characteristics of the built environment in the different areas. And each one needs to be studied kind of with those considerations in mind. So for example, the industrial areas, there is the economic opportunities analysis is required by the state. We have to demonstrate that we have land, sufficient land capacity to accommodate different kinds of jobs, including industrial jobs. And so the industrial areas will be looked at in conjunction with that economic opportunities analysis to understand the interplay between how much area needs to go into protection of environmental resources and how much area it remains for to remain as industrial land to accommodate jobs. So that's an example of why that area is not part of this action right now, because we want to do it in conjunction with that analysis.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Good. So I'm going to, Megan, if you could schedule some time with these folks and Commissioner Rubio or somebody from Commissioner Rubio's staff, just so I have a chance to do some follow-up work. That'd be great. And I appreciate your being here. Anybody else for the good of the order here? Very good. This is a first. Yes? Oh, you look like you were going to say something. All right, good, very well. Item number 731.
Actually, before.
Sorry, Mayor, we just want to make sure that we announce that the record will remain open
Go ahead.
until September 1st, Friday, this coming Friday,
Okay, that's for written comments.
At 5 p.m.
at 5 p.m.
Okay, so September 1st, 5 p.m., written testimony will be accepted. The record remains open, so if anybody's been watching this and is inspired, or if anybody wants to do follow-up who's already participated, you're welcome to send us emails, and we will get all of that prior to our final deliberations.
And also that oral testimony is closing.
And the oral record is closed. Anything else?
And the item continues to what?
I haven't gotten to that yet. But I am trying.
Doing great.
All right, item number 731 is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading, time certain. What time?
Yeah, it's continued to September 13th at 2 p.m., time certain.
September 13th, 2 p.m., time certain. Item number 732 is also a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It also moves to second reading, time certain.
Yep, again, September 13th, 2 p.m. time certain.
September 13th, 2 p.m.
And I'll make a quick announcement.
Please, go.
So at the moment, the only amendment on the table is Commissioner Rubio's amendment.
Correct.
If council intends to introduce new amendments, I believe staff has requested that they're posted by September 11th, and should there be new amendments, council may decide to reopen the record. So parties should plan to attend the September 13th meeting in order to preserve their ability to testify.
Very good. And that does beg a procedural question from my perspective. The amendment package, does that pertain to 731 or 732 or both?
It's 731, the title 33.
Very good, 731. So 731 moves to second reading as amended, 732 moves to second reading. Both will get their second readings on September 13th at 2 p.m., time certain.
Yeah, because it's land use, we will reconvene and potentially take a tentative vote that date if there are no additional amendments.
Okay.
And then be back for final findings.
It's not great. It's not great. Okay, good. So what that means, folks, because it's land use, it gets special rules, meaning the vote we take, if we take a vote on September 13th, would be considered a tentative vote, and then there would be a follow-up period, and then a final vote. Anything else? Fabulous. Thank you, everybody. Thanks all who testified. We are adjourned.
Thank you.